large tub.
How much input did you have on each other's writing, and how much did you need to hold back on each other?
I wrote all of his chapters.
The question is, how much input did we have on each other's writing, and how much editing did we do of one another? We worked a lot. We worked very closely with each other in the revision process, very, I think, honestly and forthrightly about if there were issues or places where we saw room for improvement. But I would say that David's chapters are very much David's, and my chapters are very much mine.
Yeah, and it was fascinating because I'd never done that before. With revision, we really went chapter by chapter, page by page, just sort of giving comments and trying to make sure that the book, the last thing we wanted, and I don't think it happened, was for it to seem like two novels that happened across in the middle.
Right.
We wanted everything thematically, meaningfully, with the characters, everything to sync up. So we had some really interesting conversations, and I think the nature of our writing personalities came out in that way, and insofar as with me, with John, it was always me sort of telling him to keep things in, and with John, with me, it was a lot of like, well, are we sure we want that in? And so,
yeah, I mean, I think that's, I in the past have always deleted about 90% of my first drafts. And that's not...
Does that mean you write like 1,200-page first drafts?
No. I write like 300-page first drafts, and then I keep 20 pages and then write 280 new pages.
Wow.
It's not efficient, but I don't know another way. So it was difficult for me, and that's pretty weird and unusual. So I think it was difficult for me to try to do it another way. But I'm glad I did.
Do you have any fights?
No, we didn't.
I wish we had.
That, and we're going to start having fights. Maybe we'll have one right now. It's not. Yeah. Stop! Ow!
Yeah. No, we didn't have any fights.
You bitch squealer!
Several books. Are there any parts of certain books that you've written that just remain favorites of yours? Certain parts or scenes, character traits, anything like that you just remain very passionate about or in love with?
All right, the question was, of the books we've read, are there scenes that we've written that we go back to and are still proud of, or that we particularly love? John?
You go first.
I would have said John if I had one. I think most of Boy Meets Boy, my first book, because it's gotten to the point now that it's been so long ago since I've written it that when I go back and I read it, it's almost like I'm a reader. And it's very strange because I remember the story, but you don't remember word for word everything, so you can appreciate different phrases. And I think there is something, it's very much a first novel, so it certainly has its flaws, but it has such sincerity that I feel a huge fondness for it. So again, that's not a single scene. There is a scene in Will Grayson that involves a glass bowl, which is a scene that was not planned out at all. And it came out, and I was like, this is the smallest possible scene, and yet it might be my favorite in the book. And most of my books, the scenes that are my favorites are the smallest ones. There is a scene in Boy Meets Boy, and it's very funny because my friend Brian, it's his favorite scene too, and we bonded almost over the fact that it's our favorite scene, that at one point, two of the boys are about to go to a dance, and the sister, who is an incredibly minor character and is very annoying, and has not been very approving just because she's a smart, narky little sister, she runs and gets her camera to take a picture of them. And for some reason, just this idea of these two boys posing for a picture for the snarky sister before going to a dance, I was in tears when I wrote it. When I write it, I'm like, oh. It's just because that, again, the essence of the book, or for any book that I write, is usually in that small of a scene. It's not the climax, it's not the beginning, it's not the big production numbers. It really is in that really quiet moment between two or three different characters that really exposes the soul. So those would be my favorites.
I genuinely don't, I don't really read my books after I've written them unless I have to for the Hollywood people or something. But I think that there's Looking for Alaska is divided into two parts, before and after. And I think the first like 5 pages of the after part, I still like.
Short but sweet. Way in the back there, you guys can duke it out. All right.
Thank you. Why a corn shop?
That's a spoiler, so we're not going to answer. Sorry.
How is the screenplay going for Paper Towns?
That's a spoiled answer to that.
How is the screenplay going for Paper Towns is the question. He looks at the audience carefully.
Short answer.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
Was there any specific reason for the name Will Grayson?
Was there any specific reason for the name Will Grayson?
All right, well, we divided it up. I did the first name Will, which I wanted, again, because we knew the theme of identity would be important, so the name was important. I love Will because it's both a really solid formal name, or in meaning the word will, so like your last will and testament, thy will be done. But it's also more often than not used as a questioning word. Will you still love me tomorrow? Will you still be there for me? Will this work? Will this not work? And I loved almost that sort of bipolar definition of the word will and how it's used, and I thought that would really fit these characters nicely.
I picked Grayson because I have a cousin who has a child named Grayson, and every time I hear his name, I hear the phrase grace in, like Grace space I-N, and I think that phrase is stuck in my head and made me wonder where it is in the phrase. Is it letting grace in, or is it grace in adversity? And I'm interested in the idea of grace and the way that we've, as a species, have constructed the idea of grace over millennia, and so that's why I picked Grayson.
Right, and you put them together, and again, it could be either way. It could be
be
will
like
grace in, like question mark, or will, as in like will it to be so, grace in, like
Yeah.
invited in, which is cool.